Oh, that's unfortunate.
We are on serve. The tweener and Medvedev says,
Get that out of here!
Jack Sock, why didn't you take advantage of the clay while you had the chance? Today on Coffee Break Tennis, Richard Gasquet reveals that he skipped Stuttgart, opting instead to play on the grass in Nederland over at Toggenbogen, just to avoid facing Roger Federer on his favorite surface. And also, Roger Federer responds to critics judgmental on his choice to skip the clay. Oh, and by the way, Roger Federer is #1 in the world again, so we'll talk a little bit about how he looked down in Stuttgart. Oh, and of course, we got the Queen's Club and Halle draws to talk about. We're fully loaded today. Mr. Goat, hit the music.
That's good.
Welcome to Coffee Break Tennis, the fastest growing tennis talk show in the world. Sorry we missed a little bit of the end of that clay court season, but everyone knew it was going to happen anyways. We will be around all the time for grass. Mr. Goat, the talking tennis cat, is right here. He is the official co-host of the program. I am your host, Matt Bradshaw. Let's get into it. About 1 year and 2 or 3 days ago today, so this most recent Friday, was the 1-year anniversary of CBT, a show that I started on YouTube because I saw a bunch of people saying Roger Federer's done, and I thought, no way, you're crazy. He's probably going to win Wimbledon, and I made a video about it, and I was right.
Going to win Wimbledon. Have no fear, Fed heads.
If you remember that long year ago, things at Stuttgart were very different. Let's take a look at what happened back then.
Roger Federer is out. That's right, he's lost his opener for the 2017 grass court tennis season. What? He lost to who?
So now Roger Federer, #1 in the world again. He's won Stuttgart. In the past, people have commented things like, Matt, how did the rankings work? I don't get it. This is a good example. Last year, we started CBT because Roger lost in his first match. First round up, he had a bye, so second round against Tommy Haas, the legend. So since he lost then, last year, what do you get? What did he get, like 10 points? You get ranking points. Like if you win Wimbledon, you get 2,000 points, and they last for exactly 1 year. Because the next year, if you don't win Wimbledon again, they go away. If you get to the finals, you get to keep a lot of them, but you don't get to keep all of them unless you win it again. So since Roger last year lost so early, he only had like 10 points to defend. People always say to defend, meaning if he went there and lost first round again, he would successfully defend his 10 points. If he said, I don't want to play there, he would lose his 10 points. Since it's an ATP 250, which is the smallest tournament we have out there.
Smaller piece.
Roger wins it this year. 250 points go to him. Since he had, I think it's 10. I think you get 10 points if you lose in the second round, whatever it is. He gains 240. He nets 240, keeps the 10 from last year. The lousy 10 wasn't doing much for him. And that new 240 comes in and puts him ahead of Rafa, as you can see here on the rankings. So it looks like skipping clay has worked out for Roger Federer, and Roger Federer decided to defend himself. Some of you remember last year, forget you guy Guy Forget, he got critical of Roger for skipping his tournament, even though it's pretty obvious. Look, the guy just had the back injury in Canada right before the U.S. Open. Really don't want to do that before the World Tour Finals that were coming up at the time. I think this was in late October, World Tour Finals, early November. And Guy Forget spoke up. Roger didn't say anything about it. Now we've heard little rumblings and mumblings all over the place, and I'm sure, trust me out there, I'm sure Roger Federer has heard a lot more of this griping about why can't you just play some of the clay than we've heard about. You know, he's heard a lot more in private, I'm sure, than has come out through the media. So Ion Teriak, you guys might know him, director of the Madrid Masters tournament. Just before the French Open on clay, Roger didn't play. Director Tirak said Federer is definitely the greatest player of all time, but he doesn't behave correctly. I don't think his attitude is fair. It rarely happens in other sports. Lewis Hamilton. Who's Lewis Hamilton? Doesn't stop after 5 F1 races because he is not willing. What's an F1? So Roger Federer, in one of his pressers, speaking with some Swiss media, where we get the best stuff from Roger, said this, translated, full disclosure, sometimes when you look at stuff on the internet, people don't translate it too well, but I think this is pretty good. Federer told the Swiss newspaper, Bleak, 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 bleak. There's freedom of expression, says Roger Federer. Anyone can say what they want. I'm sure I do not agree with those who say I should just play. Roger Federer continued, I have higher standards. I want people to see the best Roger Federer play on clay too. I'm fine, but I need preparation so that I can keep up with everyone. People sometimes forget that it's not so simple, maybe. As I said, I have 4 children with whom I want to spend time. But here's the good stuff from Roger. I cannot fulfill all my dreams. I'm sorry. But I've been on tour for almost 20 years, playing it full for 17 years. Then he, from January to November, full time, 17 years, Roger's saying. Not like Leighton Hewitt of Australia or Andy Roddick, the U.S. great, who sometimes miss a season because the journey is too far. And then here's your money line for real. This is where I totally agree with Roger. My injury makes it clear. If I want to stay longer on the tour, and one would think, that's my point, it would be better for the tour, I have to take breaks. This story makes me crazy. When I saw the slight pressure from Tennis Channel, they were okay. They weren't too overboard with it. They were pressing a little, trying to nicely encourage Roger, please play clay because we have the rights to the French Open on Tennis Channel. And it's always made me crazy because it's like killing the golden goose. It's literally kill the golden goose. Roger Federer is the best thing for tennis ratings ever, maybe. We could argue that. Definitely right now. If he can play 2 or 3 more years and still win some big tournaments and get people really pumped up when he's in the draw at a big tournament, and he needs to skip a few tournaments so that he can actually pull that off, rather than just play a full schedule like a young guy and end up retiring by the end of this year? The choice is pretty clear. Federer finishes with, I understand the frustration of tournament directors, even those for whom I have done a lot. But I also think they could protect me and say, Roger's free to decide. Sometimes the criticism goes a bit too far. That's a stick volley. Sticking it from Roger. Comment below, what do you think about that? I think the golden goose thing, I mean, you nail it. There's no other way to even talk about it or think about it. 20 years, put in his time. He is the golden goose. He will continue laying the golden eggs. Maybe not at every tournament, but the ones that matter most, like Wimbledon and U.S. Open. Don't forget the Australian Open. Oh, my God. So Roger's back on grass. He wins in Stuttgart. Looks like he's a real smart guy skipping the French Open. And I saw some interesting stuff out there I wanted to talk about, just to talk about this transition from grass. So we all heard Richard Gasquet, basically, he put it, I didn't print it out. It's on one of these computers. We don't need the exact quote. Richard Gasquet admitted it, and it worked out for him. Look, he won over in Toggenbagen in Nederland. My friend Mary in Nederland's, she's not going to be enthused by me saying Toggenbagen, but I don't know how to say Schertoggenbosch. Comment below how to say Schertoggenbosch. Is there an S in front of it? It's very confusing because it's a very little S and it's far away. Things worked out for Gasquet going over to Toggenbagen Schertoggenbosch because he didn't have to play Roger Federer, and he won the darn thing. But he did have to play this talented guy that we're all very excited about, Senor Sisyphus.
My friend, Cookie O'Puss. My name is Cookie O'Puss, the fresh caramel ice cream cake.
Stefanos Tsitsipas, adjusting to grass wasn't easy. This is from tennisworldusa.org. This is amazingly not written by Luigi Gatto, the overworked Italian gentleman who writes 99% of all the articles on that website. This is by Zevad Mezik. Rising star Stefan, who lost to Gasquet in, I believe, 2 tiebreakers. It was a competitive match, at least 1 tiebreaker. In the quarterfinals over at Toggenbagen, which is really in a city called Rosmalen. Rising star Stefanos Tsitsipas, that we refer to as Sisyphus, admits that the beginning of the 2018 grass campaign wasn't easy. The 19-year-old is featuring this week's ATP Schertoggenbosch. They put S- here. Very confusing. It took me longer than I expected to adjust to the grass courts. It's been really tough, said Tsitsipas. Now, when I read this, I thought it's very important to point out to the people, how tricky that transition can be. But I also thought of this. I'm predicting right here now that some of the haters out there, fix my hair like Roger, some of the haters out there are going to start saying something that sounds like this in the future. Maybe I'll be wrong, but I predict someone is going to say this, maybe even in the fancy tennis media, the real tennis media, maybe even there. They'll say Roger had an unfair advantage because he was able to start practicing on grass before everyone else. Therefore, of course he'll win Wimbledon. He has an unfair advantage. So I don't know. Maybe that's me just going a little overboard because I've seen so much negative stuff out there. But putting that out there, maybe someone will say that. Let's take a look at what Nick Kyrgios said after he lost to Roger Federer in Stuttgart. He just looks efficient, says Kyrgios. He looks so comfortable on the grass. I have never played anyone with a better sort of first serve and first ball, especially on the grass. So what is Nick Kyrgios talking about? He's talking about how Roger is the king of the first strike tennis. Grass rewards great ball striking more than any surface. And Roger hits the most beautiful ball. It's not debatable. Even if you think Rafa's better than Roger, you have to admit Roger hits a cleaner ball. And by cleaner, pretty much like what Kyrgios said. It's a more efficient stroke. Gives you more bang for your buck. Kyrgios continues, Roger just takes all the time away, seems so relaxed. His block return on his backhand side is money. He looks in form. This is the best. He's just been chilling out, getting ready for the grass season. Very dangerous at the moment. And I agree. Kyrgios just nailed it. Roger Federer timing the ball beautifully. Doesn't look like anyone in the world can bother him on this surface. Reminds me of how Rafa looked the entire time he was playing on clay. Of course, he ran into a little trouble over in Madrid, but other than that, it never looked like anyone really had a chance to beat Rafa. Maybe little Diego Schwartzman. Definitely not my choice for giving a challenge, Juan Martín del Potro. Although, we're not even sure. Did he really tweak his hip that bad in the middle of the match? That's the French Open. Forget about the French Open. So Nadal, meanwhile, is over in Mallorca because now they have this smaller WTA grass court tournament. It's only WTA, no ATP there. But it's in Mallorca. I mean, that's not a very big place. That's where Rafa lives. Rafa's there getting ready. He's not going to play Queens, which means, for those of you who don't understand the rankings points, whatever he picked up last year, I don't remember how he did at Queens last year. It wasn't too good, right? So Rafa's practicing on the WTA tournament courts in Mallorca. You know, they're the same as ATP courts. Getting good practice on grass. Doesn't have to leave home. Perfect for Rafa. Just did a lot of work, a lot of celebrating, I'm sure, after winning his 11th. Incredible. Congratulations to Rafa since we didn't do a show. Me and Pete, so busy with those tennis clinics, baby. They were so much fun.
I came here to get better.
I would definitely come back.
I'd like to see you get your hops a little sooner. See, so that was great footwork, but you were moving around too long this way.
And bam!
Oh! My back leg is going to slide around even more dramatically. Watch this leg really go backwards. You guys see it happening?
That's why they call me Mr. McFeely.
You call yourself Mr. McFeely.
You guys like the clinic! But yeah, so I didn't do a show then. Congratulations to Rafa. I don't want anyone to think that I was trying to, say like, I don't care. Forget Rafa. I'm not going to make a show. I hate him. I really like Rafa. I respect Rafa very much. I just like Roger better. Okay, and finally, before we move on to the two draws and we'll finish today's show, Roger Federer, Swiss star. This is a same thing, interview with Bleak, the Swiss outlet. Roger Federer talks about his losses in Indian Wells and Miami. Obviously, last year he won those two tournaments. This year, he was one win away, lost to Del Potro in the final of Indian Wells, lost to Nazi Kakinakis first round in Miami. Very disappointing for me. Of course, I had Miami tickets. During the two tournaments, Indian Wells and Miami, says Federer, I felt that I was becoming more and more passive, that I did not dare go for the returns. Federer continues, Indian Wells is sometimes difficult because the ball jumps there extremely high. It's very windy in Miami. One more match, I would have got more rhythm, but these are moments that show me that I need time for decent training to play really, really well again. Let go of the arm and trust myself on everything. So I think Roger Federer put it all together in 2003. One, because his beautiful strokes can do more damage on the grass. 2003, Roger wins Wimbledon, right? That's his first major. A lot of people said, oh, this guy's so talented, but it looks like he's not going to win anything after all. He's just a waste of talent. They spoke a little too soon, obviously. I feel like the grass courts, it can bring the best out of Roger's game, but it also can force the fight or flight reflex. You ever hear about that fight or flight thing? Well, I think there's kind of something like that with tennis players, the fight or flight. When you're under extreme pressure in tennis, some players react by being very tense, not swinging through the ball, not playing freely, hitting shots that are not as good, making more unforced errors. And I think some other players, when they hit those true moments, crunch time moments, a little crunch time coaching plug there, when Rafa Nadal's on clay and he feels the crunch, right? He's facing break points, he comes up with his best stuff. Well, Roger Federer, for his game, he has to trust it on grass. He has to let it loose, because on grass, if you hesitate at all, if you get tight at all, you pay even more on that surface because of the bounce. You just have so much less time to react to the tennis ball. So I feel like Wimbledon, grass court tennis in general, it kind of brings the best out of Roger, because it kind of forces him to just say, hey, look, you got to just go for it and trust it here, because this ball is flying, baby. It is moving fast here. All right, let's turn to the computer. Sorry, Mr. Goat. Let's look at these draws. So first, let's look at this this Queen's Club draw. Now it's the Fever Tree Open. I always called it Queen's Club. It's a sponsor, so we'll respect the sponsor, Fever Tree, whatever. Hey, if anyone knows what Fever Tree is, comment below. So Marin Cilic will face Gilles Muller. Remember that match from Wimbledon last year? That'll be a big rematch there. And it's worth pointing out that Mueller took out Denis Shapovalov in 2 tiebreak sets. So that's a pretty good result for El Chapo, the young Canadian that we all hope will be a great player. Stan Wawrinka has won his first round. He will play another guy who did great last year at Wimbledon, Sam Querrey. That's going to be another interesting match. It's always going to be interesting to see guys like Murray and Wawrinka and even Djokovic to some extent now. Of course, Feli Lopez. Show me those calves, Feli Lopez. Good grass court player. He's there. Nick Kyrgios playing Andy Murray first round. Hard to believe that Andy Murray, we're going to finally see him again, but it looks like he'll be playing Nick Kyrgios bright and early here on the East Coast. We'll also get to see guys like Grigor Dimitrov, who we all know can be so good. Grass is a good surface for him. They didn't call him Baby Fed for no reason all those years. Grigor should be able to do something on grass. We really hope he'll get it together. Just don't beat anyone named Roger. We'll also get to see Novak Djokovic in action tomorrow. We may see Grigor Dimitrov and Novak Djokovic face each other very early. And of course, it wouldn't take much for them to bump into, in the third round, Tomas Birdman Berdych, who's of course very good on grass. Wimbledon finalist, 2010? Lost to Rafa in the finals. And finally, let's talk about that Halle draw, baby. Roger Federer is the #1 seed. He will play tomorrow morning very early, thanks to Lavanya Singer-Dinesh. Put that on the screen. Lavanya gave us the shortcut to Roger's draw right here. Federer's first match, 5 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow morning. He'll face Aljaz Badin, who is a very beatable opponent, especially here in grass for Roger. He's a good player. Everyone is. Round 2 could be Stevie Johnson or Benoit Paire, who dyed his hair to spite me. Quarterfinals, Cole Schreiber, very good grass player. It's tough, actually. Although I would pick him to get there. I would pick Roger to beat him. Fucsovic, Jaziri. Semifinals could be Dominic Thiem. Yeah, right. Maybe Thiem can get there, but Thiem is never going to scare me against Roger, because he's like all the things Roger does so well in grass. Thiem's like the opposite. He isn't able to shorten up the backswing on command and hit incredible shots with very, very little time to prepare to hit them. So Dominic Thiem, I don't think he'll be there. Sisyphus, Luca Puig, maybe one of those guys could be there. And I would love to see this semifinal, Roger Federer versus someone I'm not going to call Baby Fed, but he could be our today's Baby Fed, Stefanos Tsitsipas. And of course, the final, it could be Nishikori, it could be Bautista Agut, it could be Richard Gasquet, wouldn't surprise me there. But we all think probably be Sasha Zverev. It should be Sasha Zverev. If he really is the third best player in the world right now, he should get to that final and play his match against Roger. Now, let's take a look at the big picture. What would Alexander Sasha Zverev have to go through? Guys like Bjorn Chorich, Richard Gasquet, Florian Mayer. The guy's really good on grass. Karen Khachanov, Misha Zverev. They're lurking around in that half of the draw. All right, well, there you go. Happy to be back here at Coffee Break Tennis Desk with my sidekick, Mr. Goat, the talking tennis cat, who's enjoying a nice nap. We will see you either Wednesday or Thursday this week. Let's see what happens with Roger down in Halle Before we go, I just want to say again, thank you to Peter Freeman over at Crunch Time Coaching, who made Coffee Break Tennis possible. He already had a channel with thousands of subscribers talking about tennis instruction. He didn't have to let me do my crazy idea for a tennis talk show, which must have sounded completely ludicrous a year ago. Who wants to watch a talk show about tennis? An even bigger thank you, which that was a very big thank you for Peter Freeman, a bigger thank you to all of you out there who've been watching this show. Some of you have been watching for an entire year now, and it means so much to me, and I promise to try my hardest to keep bringing something that's watchable to the YouTubes. See ya!
Love 15. Federer comes over the forehand on the return and pushes serve back pretty good with a nice topspin forehand. Then Federer follows up the second shot with another one of those deep slices. The third shot's coming. It looks like that same backhand slice. So Sasha is hanging back in the court and Federer hits the perfect drop shot. Sasha has no chance to get there. And now if you're Sasha, you're wondering what's going to happen next. You're scared and you're confused. Yes, indeed! Oh, this giant, hideous Halle trophy is really heavy. Hit the music!